Any business arising? Seeing none, I wouldn't mind moving 5D and 5E ahead. And we have Bill Horace here who wants to speak on the matter of speeding on the Cockshut Road. So with the board's indulgence, Bill, if you would like to just take the podium and explain to us your concern, and we will deal with 5D and 5E after you sit down.
Good morning to the chair, councilors, guests. My name is William Horace, and I live in Pine Ridge Estates on the Cockshut Road. I've been here before on the same issue. I didn't bring a whip with me today, but I'm whipping the same horse. Speeding, still consistent problem. Only recently we have a new issue. There's been construction in downtown Port Dover, and there's been an influx of heavy-duty dump trucks. Have no regard for the speed limit at all. Yesterday, I chased the truck through a 50-kilometer-hour zone at 90 to catch him. And this is normal. And this has been going on since the construction in downtown Port Dover. I've advised John Wells, he's advised the OPP, I have talked with the OPP, they have gotten back to me and said they put up a spy camera. I don't know where they put up that spy camera, as to whether it's in the effective area. They say, yes, there is speeding. We've put it on our whiteboard. I don't know what that means. I imagine that's a bulletin board that everybody reads every day. And they say they are aware and they will address the issue. I have not seen this issue addressed at all. If they're doing this through Dover, they're doing it everywhere. I have called one trucker, advised them that their vehicles are speeding. They apologized for it and said that they would inform their drivers. 3 days later, the drivers are still speeding. Doesn't make any difference. The other thing is, there are people that walk this road, walk with dogs that can be easily upset by these trucks going by. There are people that ride bicycles on this road, could be caught in a slipstream of one of these trucks going by. It's dangerous. Needs to be addressed, and now. And of course, my argument has always been, you want to stop speeding, put up photo radar. This is a conduit for speeding that goes on for I don't know how long in the past, and it's going to go on into the future unless something is done about it. People in the community are concerned because coming out of our Lindover, if somebody miscalculates while a truck is coming, the truck is not going to be injured, but the party in the car sure is. Those trucks are big, heavy, and if I have to chase a truck at 90 and a 50, that says it all. So please, folks, we need to address this issue. You need to set a precedent so that people know if you're speeding, you're going to get ticketed. Or, and this has been brought up to me by some people, no offense to the OPP, are you afraid to ticket these people because they're local industry and you don't want to offend local industry? Well, you know what? You're breaking the law. You need to be corrected.
Questions for Bill? Jim?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Not a question at this point, but a comment. Thanks, Bill, for coming. Just so you're aware, your most recent correspondence to John Wells had been forwarded to Mayor Luke and I and was on today's agenda already anyways, even without you being here. So we would have, as a board, been having some further discussion about this in light of your last email. So just so you're aware of that.
Thank you.
Other questions for Bill? Okay, go ahead, Jim.
One other thing, Mr. Chairman, to mention, and I'm sure staff will tell you, we did have the speed spy there. But one other thing that we've been told by staff that we think we're going to be able to do in the Norfolk detachment is to have those devices that it's a radar system that broadcasts to the speeder what his or her speed is when they go by the device. And if we can get those, and I think we've applied and we're hopeful we will get them funded, that will be a location to deploy one of those devices for a period of days or even weeks, I guess, if necessary, for people to get the message as well. But that's just an observation, Mr. Chairman. And
May I comment?
Sure, go ahead.
The signs are posted. They pay no attention to the signs. I know what you're talking about, the flashing unit. It'll flash. They'll go right through it. because there's no deterrent. There's nothing that's going to stop them to say, oh, I'm going to get a ticket. There's nothing to do that. So they'll pay no attention to it, and they'll just go right through it. Just based on observations.
Any other questions or comments for Bill? So Bill, if you want to take a seat, I want to ask the detachment what's been happening here and how many tickets have been given out. And
Thank you for the opportunity.
Joe?
So I'm not going to disagree with Bill that Cockshot Road is a speeding issue, because it is. What I'd like to do is summarize what we've done to date and what we'll do in the future. So we've conducted 3 speed spy studies. The first one that I have was back in August 2015. So northbound vehicles, we counted 2,230. Out of those northbound vehicles, 669 were speeding over 20 kilometers over the speed limit, which was 30% of those vehicles that were counted. Southbound, again, 30% of the vehicles were speeding 20 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. We conducted focus patrols, and then in October 2016, we did another speed spy study. And for northbound vehicles, we found that from 30%, we were down to only 16% were speeding 20 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. Southbound vehicles had dropped from 30 down to only 3% speeding 20 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. We did another focus patrol, and just as recently as May 2017, we did another speed spy study. Northbound vehicles, of those that were counted, 16% again were found to be speeding 20 kilometers over the speed limit. Hadn't changed any. Southbound vehicles, those that were counted, were down to 2%. We're speeding 20 kilometers over the speed limit. So there's been a notable decrease in speeding for southbound traffic, but northbound continues to be problematic. There's no doubt about that. To date, since August 2015, we've had 35 officers dedicate 71 3/4 hours to focus patrols on that section of road, with 60 charges being laid. I can say that in conjunction with the Highway Safety Division out of London, they now have a provincial traffic plan initiative where the HSD, or Highway Safety Division unit, will come into various counties to assist with focus patrols. And you might have heard me talk about it at the previous meetings, because Highway 3 and 24 were the focus patrols for the second quarter. For the third quarter, we've designated Cockshot Road as one of the target areas. So there'll be even more increased enforcement on Cockshot Road for the third quarter. In regards to the comment about people walking on the roads, well, that would be something that the county should look into for sidewalks if that be deemed necessary. There's not too much I can do about that. And I do think that the flashing radar warning signs, if we get them, will be beneficial, as well as perhaps we need to look at some other traffic calming measures, whether it be signs erected by the county to say, community zone, children playing in the area, something to make drivers say, hey, there's people here, I need to slow down more, there's kids in the area, whatever. But that would be something that the county traffic division could probably have ideas on more than myself.
Questions for Joe? Jim?
Mr. Chairman, thanks, Staff Sergeant, for that report. Given the stats you've quoted us now for the last 2 speed spy exercises of less than 10% for northbound and 15 or 16% south, or vice versa. Okay. My question was going to be, in terms of averages across the county, is that still substantially above average, or is that the kind of numbers you get whenever we deploy the speed spy in an area?
For percentages that are exceeding the speed limit, it varies from area to area, and depending on the area, there's no set percentage where we say, okay, this is definitely a problem area. We look at the area itself, the surroundings, the roadway, and make that determination. But 16% of all the vehicles that are timed exceeding 20 over the speed limit coming northbound into the area is a problem, and we're trying to address it.
Other questions for Joe? I have one. If it were designated a community safety zone, is there any evidence available to you that would suggest that the designation as a community safety zone would substantially reduce the speed of traffic?
I don't have any empirical data on that, but myself, I know that when fines are doubled in a community safety zone, that people tend to, and it's signed such that they tend to take notice.
So the fine would go from 125 to 250 or something like
In
that?
community safety zones, the fines are doubled.
And if it were designated, would a community safety zone get designated on a stretch of road like that when there's no school?
I don't know, I'd have to look into
John?
the requirements for that.
You're looking as if you're doubting Thomas, so.
No, I'm just not sure, given that it isn't a school zone, so I'm not sure.
I'd have to look into the parameters of designating something a school as community safety zone. I don't know offhand.
Jim?
Mr. Chairman, speaking from painful personal experience, I got caught in a community safety zone up in Grey County several years ago. It wasn't a school zone, it was just a small village and now I've lost the name of the village, but anyways, the point is, it was in a small hamlet community. It was a designated community safety zone, and fines doubled or fines increased, and so I don't think it has to be a school zone. I think it can be designated even if it isn't. Now that's just my experience. And I'll tell you, it did slow me down after that, and still does. If I see those signs and I know there is that designation and therefore even a greater financial risk, then for me as a consumer, as a driver, it affects you.
Charlie?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just a question. Certainly, Bill had indicated that part of the issue now is to truck traffic heading south. There's a lot of construction on all over the county, but particularly big construction in Port Dover. So I guess my question is, are there any plans going forward of increased enforcement there? Like, I would think the trucking community would get the message loud and clear if there was maybe an increase in enforcement there for a little while. And again, I certainly know we have so many resources. We can't be everything everywhere at once, but is there any thoughts of any increase or step up there, or don't know? I would think that would.
Yes, as I said, in conjunction with the Highway Safety Division, starting July 1st,
Yes.
there's going to be, for the full quarter of the year, increased enforcement on all of Cockshot Road, and that area is definitely going to be a
Okay.
target area.
You did say that, Mr. Chair, and I apologize. I didn't quite make the connection that you talked about
Yeah.
London being
And
involved, so.
as for the truck traffic, I mean, they're doing construction in Port Dover for the county. I'm sure that a letter from the county or speaking from the county, someone managing the project to the construction company saying, your trucks are speeding, might go a little way or a long way to assisting the problem if the construction company is aware that there's been complaints.
Yeah, thank you. And again, often with these large construction companies and you're into these big projects like Main Street of Port Dover, often there are subcontracted, the trucking companies, depending on the material, where it's coming from and what the nature. So I'm not saying that can't be done, but sometimes it's It extends much bigger than just the general contractor.
I understand that.
You understand
But
that.
I'm sure the subcontractors would take notice if,
I don't disagree. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any motion on this, one way or the other? Any thought of, sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Mr. Chair, I was really encouraged to hear the staff sergeant say that our people have asked for this extra support from this Highway Safety Division. And over the next quarter, there's going to be a greater presence. I'm sure that will be a deterrent. I would personally suggest the board just wait and see how that goes over the next quarter, and hopefully we'll achieve the results that the deputation and all of us were hoping for. So that's just my opinion.
So follow it up in September and see where we are. Okay, I'm seeing support for that. Bill, thank you very much for attending today. We really appreciate that. Obviously, there is a speeding issue there, and we recognize that there is a speeding issue there. No simple solutions, but obviously increased enforcement is one. And we'll try and get the message out to truckers that they shouldn't be driving so quickly on that stretch of the road. So we can appreciate your frustration, but it's not an easy fix. So thank you for attending today. We appreciate that. So if we could move on to community policing minutes 5A. Any questions or comments? Five B, the letter from the mayor to the board with respect to adult entertainment. Thank you for doing that, and it confirms what Member Oliver said at the last meeting, which was that there would require council approval to have adult entertainment at any of the existing buildings, so that's a good thing. 5C, email from Jim Oliver with respect to Turkey Point issues. Jim?
Chairman, I just asked Maureen to put this on for FYI kind of thing. And I know our staff here are well aware, I guess, even of the problem location that was referred to in this email communication from a cottage owner. So my only concern when I saw the one photograph that this individual sent that showed, I think there were a couple of OPP officers on scene on that weekend, and I believe it was May 24 weekend. And then I was following up with bylaw staff after that fact, and were they aware that the OPP had been on scene? And they were, and that's, I guess, all part of the agreed upon coordination that we talked about at our special OPP bylaw meeting earlier in the year. So that's all good stuff. And then my only comment to Mr. Ensland, subsequent to this email, was, well, now that warnings have officially been given, you might say, on the 24th of May weekend, if there's a subsequent problem on the July 1st weekend, as an example, in that same property, would either OPP or bylaw feel that the time was right to actually go ahead and ticket the property owner for excessive noise if it was happening again? And from Mr. Ensland's perspective, his reply to me was, yes, we've now done our due diligence. Warnings have been issued to the property owner. We could issue a ticket the next time there was a legitimate complaint. So I assume that might be the same with OPP. If they're called to the same location on a subsequent weekend, we don't have to go through the whole warning process again before we could be within our legal right to lay a charge. That's really why I asked to have this on, just to have perhaps a brief further discussion to affirm that that's the case, or inform me if that's not the case. Joe?
yes, that would be the case. The only caveat that I would put is that I'm unclear as to whether this was a rental property or not. So obviously, we'd have to confirm that the same parties are there causing the same nuisance that we warned previously. Otherwise, they had no warning. So that would be the only caveat.
So the protocol would always be that an individual irrespective of whether it was the same house or not, would get a warning first.
It may be the same property, but it may not be the same individual that's there causing the problem. Often with the rental properties, you have different individuals on each weekend. So each case is a case-by-case basis. I mean, in this incident here, the address that's being spoken about, the officers did attend, spoke to the homeowner. The homeowner complied, turned the music down. So if, again, this long weekend, if it's the same homeowner, same issue, then he's already had his one warning.
But given it's a long weekend coming up, that's the only recourse for people would be to call it in, say that there's a loud noise somewhere, whether it was that house or some other house, and the OPP would have to respond because there would be no bylaw people out there.
Actually, on long weekends, bylaw does work day shift and till 3 in the morning. So they are available on long weekends. I've spoken to or had email conversation with Fritz, and he's given me a list of officers who are working this long weekend. So they are available out there till 3 in the morning to deal with bylaw calls, and they're available. They call into our communications center to log on that they are there. So if we get calls regarding bylaw noise, we can refer it to their officer if there's no safety concerns.
And how would the distribution work? Like, would they be situated in Simcoe, or would there be one in the east zone, center zone, west zone?
Well, there's one bylaw officer working. I would assume that they would go to where the problem area is. I couldn't speak to how they're deployed, but I'm sure they're like us. They go to the hot spots.
Other questions with respect to noise complaints? Seeing none, we've dealt with 5D and 5E. 5F, we have a letter from the Norfolk County Community Policing with respect to a drowning prevention initiative, which seems to be in its early stages. And as near as I can tell from their letter, what they are looking for is whether we would support this. So I think at this point, I'll just throw it open to the board to make comment to see whether you want to support this or not. Dave, it's a letter that is asking for signage on the streets outside of each town that says undertow may occur at any time, exercise caution and safe swim practices. Go ahead, Dave.
This has been ongoing. This group has brought into effect the drowning for a number of years, I believe. And I think it's, was it Carol Greentree Gibbons that has been involved in that for a number of years. I think she's on the board of the Norfolk County Police Services Association, and I think she's worked on that for some time. Just to comment on where a sign would be located. I mean, I think it's great that it would be outside of Port Dover, but wouldn't it be more appropriate in the beach area or the area which people would maybe pay more attention to it than on the entrance to the community?
Other comments? Jim?
Mr. Chair, I think it's a good idea, but I tell you, there's been discussion around our council table about the amount of signage already in some of our shoreline communities, and I realize this would only potentially be 4 signs, 1 more in each of Long Point and Turkey Point and 1 or 2 in Port Dover. So that's my only word of caution is how large these signs are, and you know, I certainly wouldn't describe it as sign pollution by any stretch, but there comes a point where you've got a critical mass of signage, and people, just like the deputation said to us, do people pay attention all the time to signs? But I'd like to see an additional sort of education campaign in the summer as part of this initiative rather than, or in addition to, just the signage, if that's all it is. And I do note from the letter, they've been encouraged to come to council, Mayor Luke, I guess, to make a deputation about putting such signage up on county property. So I presume we'll hear from them at some point.
Mr. Chair, I concur with Dave. I think these signs would be much more effective closer to the actual beaches area.
Charlie, do you have any comments?
Well, it is alarming when I read this that we are the third highest. And I know last summer when I was at Long Point on a Saturday night, when the young fella drowned, standing on the beach, it's gives you a pretty sick feeling that somebody has lost their life that way when it could be prevented, just knowing that you're swimming on a beach that has an undertow. Personally, you want my vote, I like the sign. I think reminding the public of the undertow is I'm not saying all drownings on our beaches here in the county are due to undertow, of course not, but this is one sign I think that is important to, and it should be, as Dave has said, right on the beach. It should be right there where you're going swimming as a reminder coming in at least. Warning, undertow can take place. Be careful. Exercise caution. So I think, I don't speak for council. I look forward to this community policing group coming with their request to council. I think, based on these statistics, I think it's something that we need to take a serious look at, Mr. Chair. Member Oliver is absolutely right. We seem to have a sign for everything, and so it's only one more maybe in a location, but so many signs, and of course another big concern is the ticks. And we don't have enough information and signage for the increased tick situation, but I think it's important to have our beaches in Long Point and Turkey Point, and even Port Dover could have the undertow situation. I think it's an important sign to remind people. Use your head.
Dave?
Agreeing with Charlie also, Mr. Chair, we are a tourist beach community, so that just adds to that fact that we need that type of signage.
But the way I'm hearing the board, though, that the consensus is that it should be on the beach and not on the road. Is that correct? Jim?
Mr. Chairman, I think for both Turkey Point and Long Point, there's only one access, obviously, down the Turkey Point Road hill and on the causeway going to Long Point. So those ones are easy. I think they could be located near the south end of both of those access roads so that every single beach goer is going to see the sign as they approach the actual beach area. So in Port Dover, we know where the beach is. There may very well be an opportunity somewhere on that street just before you get to the beach and across from the Beach House Restaurant or something. It's still county road allowance. That probably would be a much better, more effective location than out on Highway 6 approaching the town. Again, it would just be a question, in my opinion, of to the size. If it's like a 4x4 or 6x6 sign, that's a pretty big sign to put down there beside Nectals at the beach. But if they can vary the size of the sign depending on the location and therefore the speed of the traffic or the pedestrians walking by it, that might be ideal. So I think it should be right at the beaches in each case.
So what are they looking for? Are they looking for, because what I'm hearing is that we should be writing back saying we really need more detail.
They were advised by Sean Van Acker to come to the board to just let them know what they were doing and what they'd like to do, and thought that it would be best that the board give some kind of acknowledgement as well as support for it to go on the road allowance.
To go on the road allowance.
To get put right on the beach, as we know, we need LPRCA or whoever the owners of the beach, their authority, but it'd be easier to put it on our property for the roads department to put that up. They're willing to do it. I don't recall the size. Do you recall, gentlemen, the size of the sign? I don't think we're talking huge, but just that it would be an identifiable sign on county road allowance. And they're just asking that you support that it goes on the road allowance in those areas. So that then when they go to council, they can, if council asks, have you gone to the police services board with this? Then they can say, yes, we have.
But we still don't know what the size is, or,
That would come to council. By then, the council, they would have the size there, and they would have a sign made up as a,
so support would be something to the effect of saying that we conceptually agree with signage to reduce drownings in our beach communities? Because I think that there's support for that, but obviously there's lots of details here that there may or may not be support for.
Mr. Chair, is that something like, if we were to support, this would go, we have council here, would this go back to council now to work out the details?
Jim?
Mr. Chair, I think as per Maureen's comment, I'm not getting my light on, Dave, maybe you shut yours off for a second. There we go. As Maureen said, I gather it will come via the roads department as a deputation to council, and no doubt there will be some discussion at that table about size and exact location. So I think what I read from their letter, they're asking our board here to throw our moral support behind the project, which reinforces them when they go to council. And those technical details could be worked out at that point.
Well, I think I'm seeing board support for, we'll write something back saying that we conceptually support it, but obviously there's some details that need to be worked out, including location and road sign size, and leave it at that. Dave?
If you wish a motion, I'd be prepared to make that motion, to possibly make it a little more official, that the Police Services Board support the efforts, and we be in favor of appropriate signage in appropriate places.
Okay. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Can you read it back to him?
So I have that the Norfolk County Police Services Board support the efforts and are in favor of signage
Yes.
in appropriate locations?
Yes.
And appropriate Norfolk County?
Yes.
Or-
An appropriate size.
Appropriate sizes and appropriate locations to reinforce water safety.
So just repeat that again. The Police Services Board support the efforts and are in favor of signage in appropriate size and locations to reinforce water safety in Norfolk County.
Yes.
We got a seconder? Second by Charlie. You want to make any comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I should probably turn the podium on. Yeah, that did it. Thank you. Thank you very much, John. Well, I think the key here is that we show our support and let the details be worked out between the Roads Department, Police Community Servicing Group, and Council. Mr. Oliver's quite right. Those three locations are all a little bit different, so I don't know at this point where is the best place for the sign. I suggest in Port Dover, there's probably 3 or 4 different ways to come into the community, but depending on the size of the sign, I would think something at the end of Walker Street, where the probably 90%, I know that further to the west where Councillor Wells lives, can't remember the name of the Regent Street, yeah, it was changed. There's another entrance to the beach, but it's probably less than 10%. So I would think that the Norfolk Community Policing Committee, Mr. Chair, would do the brunt of the work as to where they could be located to be the most effective in these. But I do think that at least one sign in these 3 areas where people by the thousands over the summer use the beach is important to have it posted. Thank you.
Other comments? We have a motion moved by Dave and seconded by Charlie. All in favor? Okay, great. Well, thank you. Guess I need a motion accepting 5A to 5E as information. Moved by Dave, seconded by Jim. All in favor? So if we can move on to the inspector's report. Whichever one of you gets the honor.
That'll be me today.
Joe.
So the Police Service Board report for the month of May 2017. Overtime dollars spent to date, approximately $105,831.91, or 29.41% of our 2017 overtime allotment as per the contract. The same time last year, the percentage spent of the 2016 overtime allotment per the contract was 46.98%. We continue to endeavor to monitor and minimize our overtime hours. Total auxiliary policing hours conducted for May, 411. There was one tribute received from a member of the public in a community group thanking Constable Sandchuck for his assistance. Crime Stoppers report for May 2017. There have been 202 anonymous tips received so far this year. Under Student Crime Stoppers, the William Courtney Community Service bursary applications have been received, and the committee has selected a recipient, and the recipient will be announced once they've been notified. There was the Holy Trinity Catholic High School Crime Stoppers held their annual fundraising breakfast with great success. John and I can attest to that. We had a great breakfast that morning. Promotions, presentations, meetings. Crime Stoppers participated in, presented to, and met with and gave promotional items to the Jarvis Garnet United Church, Special Olympics, Cugo OPP Detachment Open House, Dunville Optimist Club, the Gala Committee, and the Golf Committee.
Bless you.
Media relations were conducted as per usual throughout the month. Television feature did air with CHTV on April the 12th, which featured a public service announcement on protecting your cottage, seasonal, or vacation home. Under fundraising, the Spring Gala Dinner and Auction was held May 4th at the Jarvis Lions Community Center. The event was a great success and raised approximately $9,000 for Crime Stoppers. Golf tournament set for August 17th. There was a shredding day was held on May 13th in Simcoe in the Staples parking lot, and there was a shredding day on June the 10th in Caledonia. And the Run Against Crime date still to be determined for that. The Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers Annual Training Conference was held June 8th to 11th in Kitchener. The board welcomed two new members, Mike Badaway and Richard Maud, and they're actively seeking new board members. And the transition process to move jurisdiction of the town of Tillsonburg from this program to Crime Stoppers of Oxford is well underway, and all tips related to the municipality are now routed to Oxford Crime Stoppers, and it's anticipated that the transition will be complete by the fall of this year. Locally dedicated hours of overtime for May 2017, 602.5. This is down considerably from May 2016 and on par with the hours of May 2015. If we can move over to page 31, I'm going to use the graphing to give the statistics.
Are there any questions with respect to those numbers up to page 41 or 31? Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
All violent crime, based on a 5-year trend analysis during the month of May, we could expect between 35 and 57 incidents. During the reported month, we actually saw 27 incidents reported. This is down from April 2017 and down considerably from the 50 incidents we saw in May of 2016. Simcoe continues to lead in all violent crime category. Assaults, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County could expect 25 events occurring. However, during the reported month, 16 actual events were investigated. This is a decrease of over 50% from the previous year, from May 2016. This decrease can be attributed to the overall drop in violent crime. Assaults Have been reporting within the projected range for most of 2017, with some months reporting below the projected low. The first quarter reported just slightly above the projected low, and the second quarter appears to be following with similar numbers. Assaults are a major contributor to violent crime and have a direct relation to the downward trend observed there. Domestic disturbances. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 54 events during the month of May. During the reported month, 28 actual events were investigated. This is well below the expected range. However, unfortunately, Simcoe continues to lead the county in the number of domestic disturbances we see. All property crime. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County could expect between a low of 116 and a high of 153 incidents. During the month of May, a total of 138 actual incidents were reported. This is an increase over April 2017 and slightly above the number of incidents reported in May of 2016, which was 116. Break-and enters. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County could expect 18 events to occur. During the reported month, 17 actually were investigated. Break-and enters in Norfolk County reported within range for May. March and April both reported below the projected low for B&Es. Excuse me. However, May fell back within the projected range. Simcoe once again saw the highest concentration of break-and enters. However, we have seen an increase in the west side of the county with regards to break-and enters, and this is currently being looked into by the Norfolk County Street Crime Unit, as all property crime has seen an increase in activity lately. Excuse me again. Moving on to frauds. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County could expect 13 events to occur in May. During the reported month, 18 actual events were investigated. This is above the projected range for May. However, reviewing the fraud incidents for May revealed that the majority of them were in relation to the Canadian revenue scam, online scam, phone scam that's going around, CRA scam. So we continue to try to get that message out there in the media that it is a scam, and don't fall victim to it. Mischiefs. Based on a 5-year trend, it was projected that Norfolk County could expect to see 35 events. During the month, we saw 27 actual events reported. Mischief in Norfolk County reported below the range for May. Simcoe and Waterford saw the bulk of the mischief calls, accounting for 18 out of the 35. 18 out of the 27, pardon me. With the remainder being scattered across the county. They ranged from damage to vehicles, damage to property, graffiti, and a mischief relating to tampering with farm animals. Theft from motor vehicles. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County could expect 15 events in the month of May. During the month of May, 15 actual events were reported. Simcoe again continues to see most of the theft from vehicles occurring. Theft of vehicle. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk could expect 7 events to be reported during May. During the month of May, 13 actual events were reported. This is above the projected range for May. In reviewing the occurrences for May, they took place all over the county. There was no specific one hotspot for thefts. The vehicles stolen range from Chev pickup trucks to imports such as Honda, Hyundai, and Subaru. Also stolen were tractors, ATVs, and dirt bikes. Most were stolen overnight, and most were unlocked. I can report that last week a tractor which had been stolen in Norfolk County was recovered in Norfolk County, along with some stolen equipment by the Street Crime Unit, and charges are proceeding with that case. Of note, theft of vehicles continues to be an issue which is not isolated to Norfolk County. From June 12th to 15th this year, members of Project Shutdown recovered 75 stolen vehicles valued at approximately $800,000 from various locations on the 6 nations of the Grand River First Nation. And the recovered stolen vehicles were reported stolen from multiple jurisdictions across southwestern Ontario from as far back as August 2003 to as most recent as June 2017.
Do we still have one officer assigned to Project Shutdown?
We do not at this point in time. However, we tentatively have a Norfolk officer going into the position in September. Haldimand County's still currently providing that position.
And we continually liaison with the Project Shutdown people, even though we do not have a member there. Theft under 5,000, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County could expect 57 events to occur. During the month of May, 58 actual events were investigated. Theft under events reported within range for May. After seeing low numbers in February and March and April, theft under events saw a jump in May. As noted with break and enters, Simcoe saw the highest concentration of this type of occurrence. And again, the street crime unit continues to look into incidents of theft under. Illicit drugs, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 11 events to occur in May. During the reported month, 5 actual events were investigated. In regards to collisions, all collision types for May reported within the projected range at 78. This is a 2.5% decrease from May 2016. However, a year-to-date increase of 10.5% from the same time frame in 2016. Property damage collisions for May reported below the projected range at 56. This is a decrease of 5.1% from May 2016. However, again, it's a year-to-date increase of 13.1% from the same time frame in 2016. Non-fatal injury collisions totaled 22, reporting 1 over the projected high for May. In reviewing the collision types, they ranked as follows: 8 inattentive driver, 6 failed to yield right of way, 2 for speeding, 2 for follow too close, 1 impaired, 1 lost control, 1 improper turn, and 1 with an animal. Happy to report there were no fatal collisions for the month of May. However, we do have a total of 4 fatal collisions so far in 2017. I'll do impaired driving as well now since we're on driving offenses. Impaired driving, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County could expect 11 events. During May, 5 actual events were investigated. Moving back to 911 hang-ups, during the month of May, we saw 170 911 hang-ups. This is down from the number of 911 hang-ups received in May of 2016. Alarms, during the month of May, we saw 40 alarm calls received, and again, this is down from the number that we received in May 2016. Moving to Mental Health Act calls, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect to see 39 events occurring. During the month of May, 46 actual events were investigated. During the month of May, members that were involved in the 46 related occurrences dedicated 269 3/4 hours to their investigations, and average year-to-date time spent per mental health call for service is 5 1/4 hours. Foot patrol, May saw 440 3/4 foot patrol hours conducted throughout the county. Bicycle patrols, we had none to report in May. However, I can report that June has saw our bicycle patrols being conducted out on the Simcoe Trail system and in the core areas. May saw 81 school visits being conducted by officers. Driving charges, reporting for April of 2017, since we're always a month behind, saw 2 distracted driving charges, 1 street racing, 276 speeding charges, 16 seat belts, and 9 impaired driving. Excuse me again. 5 roadside screening took place, with 2 3-day suspensions being issued. 9 license suspensions issued, and 39 rides were conducted, and 19 seat belts conducted. Moving on to focus patrols. So we currently have an open focus patrol in regards to bicycle patrol on the Norfolk Trail System. Its duration has been from June 12th up until July 3rd for the focus patrol, but we'll continue to do bike patrols throughout the summer. Closed is a crime focus patrol in regards to fur activist activity around fur farms. 5 officers dedicated 5 3/4 hours to that focus patrol. No violations were observed. One suspicious vehicle was observed, but follow-up revealed it wasn't related to it at all. Currently, we have open our, going to call it HSD Big 4. That is the focus patrol for Highway 3 from Simcoe to Delhi, which we're working in conjunction with the traffic unit out of London. And to date, 28 Norfolk County officers have dedicated 129.5 hours to this patrol. They've issued 32 charges and 10 warnings. I don't have the stats from the HSD unit out of London. I'll get those once the patrol closes on Friday. We have an open one for, again, it's in regards to speeding for Highway 24 from Simcoe to Brant County. Again, it's in conjunction with the London Traffic Unit. To date, 27 officers from Norfolk County have dedicated 191.25 hours to the patrol, issuing 80 charges and 3 warnings. We've closed off our farm safety focus patrol in response to issues concerning the safe operation of farm equipment on Norfolk roads. No violations were issued, however, numerous contacts were made with the farming community. We had a focus patrol regarding speeding on West Street in Simcoe that ran from May 8th to 22nd of May. 11 officers dedicated 29.5 hours, and 20 charges were laid in regards to speeding. Cockshot Road, speeding, this was in relation to a public complaint regarding Cockshot Road in Boston, in the school area there. And we had a focus patrol that ran from the 29th of May to June 19th. 5 officers dedicated 13.5 hours, and 15 charges were laid in total. One of those stops resulted in stunt driving charges, which included a driver's license suspension and vehicle impoundment. And we've just closed off a focus patrol in regards to speeding on Church Street East in Delhi. 4 officers dedicated 7 3/4 hours to that, and 2 charges were laid. Speed spies conducted. We conducted one on Donnelly Drive in Simcoe. No problem was observed with speeding there. We conducted one on Church Street East in Delhi. Problem was identified. We ran a focus patrol that I reported on. We did another one on Prospect Street in Port Dover. Still, again, no problem was identified there. And we've conducted one on Norfolk County Road 23 at 21 Glen Meyer. Problem has been identified, and focus patrol will be conducted there in the near future. And we conducted one on Concession 2 Woodhouse, Inglewood Drive. That was in relation to, earlier on the agenda, there was a letter from a Marv Moore, indicated that there were some issues with Concession 2 there. A speeding problem was identified, and again, we will be conducting a focus patrol on Concession 2 in the near future. And that is my report.
Thank you. Questions for Joe on his report? Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2. First of all, relating to theft of motor vehicles. We were all encouraged when we saw the media coverage of that of that location of all of those vehicles on the reserve, some of which I presume were still usable vehicles. Hopefully they aren't all dismantled and dispersed by the time they're ever found. But my question relates to technology that vehicle owners could have that would allow their vehicles to be tracked. Does that technology exist today? I mean, you know, if we lose these things, they can be tracked anywhere, apparently. Well, presumably or hopefully the same technology would be available in a vehicle. Do you gentlemen know much or anything about that in terms of how easily that can be done to locate a stolen vehicle?
Well, vehicles have the OnStar system,
Yes, they do.
which will
Some cases,
pinpoint your
yeah.
location. However, most of the individuals that are acquiring the vehicles disable the OnStar
Quickly
quite
disabled,
readily.
yeah.
But there's all kinds of products out there. It's just a matter of if someone wants to buy it and install it.
The car thief would routinely somehow scan the vehicle regardless of whether it's got the OnStar sticker in the window. That's a pretty easy tip-off, but are they then able to detect if there is some kind of signal going from the vehicle?
I'm not sure what technology that they have, but I do know that they're familiar with OnStar systems and
Yeah.
they quite easily disable them.
Yeah, for sure. My second question, Mr. Chairman, relates to the school visits. And again, I guess I'm just a creature of listening to the media, but there was obviously a big hue and cry in the city of Toronto recently about schools having police officers in the schools. And I assume in those cases, they were assigned to a school. And I was really surprised and kind of shocked to see that there was any kind of community backlash to that. With our school visitation program, I know those are just casual drop-in visits. The officer may spend a few minutes, a half an hour when they're there, just sort of giving the students and staff some reassurance and some encouragement. Do we ever have any negativity coming back to us from our school visits? I'm assuming not, and I'm hoping not, but...
I've never had any negativity come back, quite the opposite. that
Absolutely.
They would like us there more.
And just following up on Jim's question, we still have a high school resource officer that's doing most of these visits, correct?
We have our community mobilization officer, Patty Cote, who engages with our high schools as part of her duties. That goes to, you know, a broader aspect, broader range as community mobilization officer.
Okay, but she's doing domestic violence too. So, whereas
Yeah.
heretofore
Yeah.
I mean, up to some point in the last recent memory, we had a dedicated police officer to the high schools and was put back on front line during the summertime. So that's not the case anymore.
I believe the officer that we had dedicated to the high schools is currently doing other duties due to an accommodation at this point in time, recovering from an illness. And as far as Mr. Oliver alluded to casual drop-ins, we actually have very structured regiment within our schools as well with our OPP Learn, with the Kids Learn program, where we have our officers, and particularly our younger officers, go and administer this program to grade 6 students throughout the county. So it's an excellent opportunity for our officers to interact with schools.
Thank you. Other questions for the inspector's report? Other questions for the inspector on any other subject? Guess you're getting off easy, Joe. Seeing none, if we could have a motion to adopt his report. Moved by Charlie, seconded by Dave Douglas. All in favor? Other business. Anything from board members? I was going to suggest September 27th as the date of the next meeting. Historically, we don't meet during the summertime, but usually if an issue comes up, we will deal with it as necessary, or when we get the police report for June and July, historically we've been sending them out to members so that they know what's happening. And again, I'm proposing that, and that the next meeting would be September 27th. Not seeing a lot of complaints on that, so If we could move on to question period. Monty?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I just